I'm Edison, 27 years old today. Or at least it was supposed to be my celebration, until my parents canceled on me last minute to attend my sister's impromptu date. They always chose her over me, but this time I chose myself. They never expected I'd cancel something much bigger than a birthday dinner. Their mortgage payment was just the beginning. I canceled everything they took for granted. Before I tell you how I ended up canceling my parents' financial security, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt like the forgotten child in your sprive. Family. Growing up in a modest suburban home in Connecticut, I was always reminded that family comes first. Except in our household, that motto came with an unspoken amendment. Sophia comes first, then family. Then maybe Edison if there's time left over. My sister Sophia is 2 years younger than me, but she might as well have been wearing a crown since the day she was born. When Sophia wanted ballet lessons, my parents found the money. When I wanted computer programming classes, I was told to use the free resources at the library. When Sophia needed a car for college, my parents co-signed her loan. When I needed transportation, I took the bus until I saved enough from my part-time jobs to buy a used Honda with 200,000 miles on it. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister. She's vibrant, social, and has the kind of personality that lights up a room. I'm more reserved, analytical, and prefer smaller gatherings to big parties. But the disparity in how we were treated wasn't about our personalities. It was about my parents' inexplicable preference. Despite the unbalanced dynamics, I excelled in school. Computers made sense to me in a way people sometimes didn't. I graduated with honors, earned a scholarship to a state university, and worked my way through college doing freelance coding projects. By 23, I had landed a job at a tech startup that valued my skills. By 25, I was making 6 figures as a senior software engineer. My financial success came at a time when my parents were struggling. The economic downturn hit them hard. Dad's construction business suffered, and Mom's part-time work at a florist couldn't compensate. They fell behind on bills, and their mortgage became a monthly source of anxiety. When they called me, voice trembling about possibly losing the house I grew up in, I didn't hesitate. I set up an automatic payment for their mortgage, $2,400 every month, directly from my account to their mortgage company. I didn't tell them it was automatic. They thought I was manually sending it each month, which made them call with gratitude regularly. That was 3 years ago. Sophia, meanwhile, jumped from job to job, relationship to relationship. She had a degree in communications but couldn't seem to find her passion. She lived in a nice apartment that our parents helped her furnish. Whenever she was short on rent, they would ask me if I could loan her money. Those loans were never repaid, but I accepted that as the cost of family peace. My relationship with Sophia was complicated. We didn't fight, but we weren't close. She'd call when she needed something or during family gatherings. She knew I was helping our parents financially, but treated it as if it was simply my duty, as the successful one. Through all of this, my birthdays remained modest affairs. Some years they were forgotten entirely amidst Sophia's dramas or needs. Last year my birthday dinner was postponed because Sophia had a bad breakup and needed family support. I understood and rescheduled. That dinner was eventually canceled too when Sophia got tickets to a concert and Mom and Dad wanted to drive her there. This year was supposed to be different. I turned 27 on a Saturday. No work conflicts, no excuses. I booked a reservation at Riverside, an upscale restaurant overlooking the water 3 months in advance. I invited my parents, Sophia, my best friend Marco, and a few close colleagues. Everyone confirmed. I was finally going to celebrate properly, not extravagantly but with dignity and the people who mattered to me. I even hired a small jazz trio to play during our dinner, knowing my dad loved jazz. I arranged for a custom cake that recreated my childhood favorite chocolate with raspberry filling and buttercream frosting. I had splurged on a new suit, navy blue with subtle pinstripes. For once I wanted to feel special. Mom and Dad seemed genuinely excited. "We wouldn't miss it for the world," Eddie Mom had said. Dad added, 27. "My boy is all grown up. We'll be there with bells on." Their enthusiasm fueled my optimism. Perhaps things were changing. Perhaps they were finally seeing me as someone worthy of celebration too. I allowed myself to hope that this birthday would mark a new chapter in our family dynamic. I spent weeks planning every detail, making sure everyone would be comfortable and enjoy themselves. I researched wines that would complement the menu. I prepared topics of conversation that would include everyone. I even created a small slideshow of family photos to display during dessert, featuring moments where we were all happy together. As the day approached, I felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Part of me still expected something to go wrong, but I pushed those thoughts aside. This year would be different. This year I would matter. The day before my birthday, I left work early to pick up the suit from the tailor. The alterations were perfect. The suit fit like it was made for me. I got a haircut, bought a new tie, and even splurged on expensive cologne. Everything was falling into place. Back at my apartment, I checked my reservation details one last time and reviewed the final head count with the restaurant. The jazz trio confirmed they had all the songs I requested. The bakery sent a picture of the finished cake, and it looked even better than I had imagined. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely excited about my birthday. Around 7 in the evening, as I was arranging the gift bags I had prepared for each guest, my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, Mom," I answered cheerfully. "Just putting the final touches on tomorrow's celebration." There was a pause, then a throat clearing. "Edison, honey, about tomorrow." Something in her tone made my stomach drop. I'd heard this prelude before. "What about tomorrow?" I asked, already knowing what was coming. "Well, something's come up with Sophia. She has a date tomorrow night with Trevor Hampton. You know, from the Hampton family that owns those car dealerships. This could be really important for her future." Trevor Hampton. I knew the family name from local advertisements. They were wealthy, influential people in our town. The kind of connection Sophia would value. "Mom," I said slowly, "tomorrow is my birthday dinner. We've had this planned for months." "I know, sweetheart, and we feel terrible. But this opportunity for Sophia just came up today. Trevor called her out of the blue. He's only in town for the weekend. So Sophia is canceling on my birthday dinner for a last-minute date." I clarified, my voice tight. "Well, not just Sophia. Your father and I need to be there too. Trevor's parents invited us all to join them at La Maison for dinner. It's important that we make a good impression. You understand, right? This could be a real turning point for your sister." La Maison, the most expensive restaurant in town. The irony wasn't lost on me that they were canceling my carefully planned dinner at Riverside to attend a more extravagant meal elsewhere. "What about my birthday, Mom? The reservation, the jazz trio, the custom cake, everything's paid for and confirmed." "Oh, Edison," she sighed as if I was being unreasonable. "You can celebrate your birthday any time. You're 27, not 7. This thing with Trevor could affect Sophia's whole future. She really likes him, and his family is very well connected." The familiar sting of being secondary pierced through me. My birthday could be rescheduled, but Sophia's impromptu date with a rich guy was unmovable. "Did you consider that this might be important to me?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Of course it's important, honey. And we'll make it up to you next weekend, I promise. We'll do something even nicer." Next weekend, always pushed to another time, another day that was more convenient for everyone else. I'd heard this promise before. "Edison, are you still there?" "Yes," I replied flatly. "Don't be upset, sweetie. Sophia really needs this opportunity, and you're always so understanding. That's what we love about you. You're our rock." Their rock. Their financial support. Their reliable son, who would always understand when he was passed over for Sophia. "Fine," I said finally. "Have a good time tomorrow." "Thank you for understanding, Edison. That's why you're so special. We'll call you tomorrow. Okay? Love you." The call ended, and I stood in my silent apartment, surrounded by the gift bags I'd prepared. One for Mom, a delicate silver bracelet with her birthstone. One for Dad, vintage jazz records I'd hunted down for months. One for Sophia, a personalized leather journal with her name embossed in gold. I called the restaurant to reduce the reservation from 6 people to 2. Marco would still come. He knew my family history and would understand. I called the bakery to see if they could reduce the size of the cake, but it was too late. I called the jazz trio and paid them their full fee despite the change of plans. As I made these adjustments, I felt something shift inside me. The sadness was still there, but underneath it was a growing sense of clarity. This wasn't a one-time occurrence or an unfortunate coincidence. This was a pattern that had defined my entire relationship with my family. I sat on my couch, staring at the wall as the reality sank in. Nothing had changed since childhood. I would always be the one expected to understand, to accommodate, to sacrifice. And they would always take it for granted that I would. The worst part wasn't even the cancellation itself. It was the assumption in my mother's voice that of course I would understand. Of course I would step aside for Sophia. Of course my birthday, my feelings, my efforts didn't really matter. For the first time, I allowed myself to truly feel the weight of all the disappointments, all the times I'd been sidelined for Sophia. The pain that had been building for years crystallized into something sharper, clearer. This wasn't just about a birthday dinner. This was about my place in my family, about my worth in their eyes. I went to bed that night with the gift bag still sitting on my coffee table, silent reminders of my perpetual position as an afterthought. The pattern started early. When I was 8, my birthday party was scaled down because Sophia had a dance recital the same weekend. By 10, I learned not to expect much. My birthdays were quick affairs, often overshadowed by Sophia's activities or needs. My 16th birthday, traditionally, a milestone, was barely acknowledged because Sophia, then 14, had made it to regional finals in a beauty pageant. College acceptance was another telling moment. When my Stanford acceptance letter arrived, there was brief congratulations before conversation shifted to Sophia's upcoming prom. When Sophia got accepted to our state university with a partial scholarship, our parents threw a party and invited the extended family. Financial sacrifices began early too. I started working at 16, saving for college. My parents encouraged this independence. "You're so responsible, Edison. Not like your sister. She needs more guidance." This guidance translated to financial support that was never equally available to me. After college, the pattern evolved rather than disappeared. When I got my first apartment, I furnished it with second-hand items and gradually saved for better pieces. When Sophia moved into her first place, our parents helped her buy new furniture, citing her need to make the right impression in her social circles. The mortgage arrangement began during a family dinner 3 years ago. Dad looked unusually stressed, barely touching his food. Mom kept giving him worried glances. "Everything okay?" I asked. After an uncomfortable silence, Dad admitted they were 3 months behind on their mortgage. The bank had sent a final notice. His construction business had lost several contracts, and they'd been using credit cards to stay afloat. "We might have to sell the house," Mom said tearfully. 30 years of memories. The family home. The place where, despite everything, I still felt connected to my roots. The thought of strangers living there, or worse, the bank repossessing it, was unbearable. "How much is the monthly payment?" I asked. $2,400. Dad said, his voice heavy with defeat. "We've tried refinancing, but our credit scores have taken a hit." That night I set up the automatic payment from my account. I didn't make a big show of it, just told them I would help out until they got back on their feet. Their gratitude seemed genuine, tearful even. For the first few months they called before each payment, checking if I was still okay with helping. Then the calls became less frequent. By the 6-month mark, the mortgage payment had become an unspoken expectation. I tried discussing the unfair treatment once about 2 years ago. We were at Sunday dinner and Sophia had just announced she was quitting another job because it wasn't fulfilling. Mom and Dad were supportive, assuring her the right opportunity would come along. I gently pointed out that perhaps Sophia needed to build some resilience, that finding fulfillment often requires working through difficult periods. Mom bristled immediately. "Not everyone is like you, Edison. Sophia is sensitive. She needs to find work that nurtures her spirit." "And what about nurturing her bank account?" I asked. "Or her sense of responsibility?" Dad stepped in. "Your sister is finding her way. We need to support her journey." "And my journey?" I asked. "Does that get equal support?" The table fell silent. Then Mom reached over and patted my hand. "You're different, Edison. You've always been independent, always known your path. Sophia needs more guidance." Different, independent. the code words for, "We don't need to worry about you," or "We don't need to prioritize you." I tried therapy after that dinner. My therapist, Dr. Rebecca Cohen, helped me understand that I wasn't crazy for feeling hurt. She used terms like family scapegoat and golden child syndrome. She suggested setting boundaries, a concept that was foreign to me when it came to family. I read self-help books on family dynamics. I joined online forums where others shared similar experiences. I learned that my situation was surprisingly common, that many families unconsciously create these imbalanced dynamics. But knowledge didn't ease the pain. Understanding why my parents favored Sophia didn't make it hurt less when they canceled plans with me for her, or when they praised her minimal efforts while taking my substantial contributions for granted. The mortgage payments continued. Month after month, $28,800 per year flowing from my account to keep my parents in their home. I never mentioned it, never used it as leverage. It was my way of showing love, even when that love wasn't equally returned. In addition to the mortgage, there were other financial supports. When Dad needed a new work truck, I co-signed the loan. When Mom wanted to start a small garden business, I provided the startup funds. When their roof leaked, I paid for the repairs. Meanwhile, Sophia's financial emergencies continued. An unexpected car repair, a security deposit for a new apartment after a fallout with a roommate, a professional wardrobe for a job she kept for 3 months. Each time my parents would call explaining why Sophia needed help, how this would be the thing that finally got her on track. And each time I transferred the money, telling myself I was helping my family. But in quieter moments, I wondered if I was enabling a dysfunctional system, one that would never change as long as I kept supporting it. The morning of my 27th birthday, I woke up alone in my apartment. No calls yet, no texts. Just the echo of yesterday's cancellation still ringing in my ears. As I made coffee, I scrolled through my bank app, looking at the recurring payment scheduled for next week. Family mortgage, I had labeled it. $2,400. Month after month, year after year. A constant withdrawal from my account that mirrored the emotional withdrawals my family made from me. Always taking, rarely replenishing. The payment was scheduled for 5 days from now. As I stared at the screen, something inside me began to shift. A quiet voice that had been whispering for years was finally getting louder. Maybe it was time to listen. My actual birthday passed quietly. Marco came over with takeout from Riverside, a small attempt to salvage the evening. We ate in my living room, the jazz playlist I'd created for the restaurant dinner playing softly in the background. "They canceled on you again," Marco said. It wasn't a question. "Sophia has a date with Trevor Hampton," I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral. Potential husband material, apparently. The whole family had to be there to make a good impression. Marco put down his fork. "Edison, this isn't right. You know that, don't you?" I nodded slowly. "I've always known. I just thought, I don't know what I thought, that things would change eventually, that if I was successful enough, supportive enough, they'd finally see me. And now?" I gestured around my empty apartment at the gift bags still sitting untouched on my coffee table. Now I'm 27, sitting in my apartment on my birthday, while my family is at La Maison with the Hamptons, probably not giving me a second thought. "What are you going to do about it?" Marco asked. That was the question, wasn't it? What was I going to do? Continue as I had been funding their lives while accepting my place as an afterthought. The thought made something twist inside me. "I don't know yet," I answered honestly. After Marco left, I sat alone with my thoughts. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty. I opened my laptop and pulled up my banking information, staring at the list of payments to my parents' mortgage company. 36 payments over 3 years. $86,400 total. What had I received in return? Occasional gratitude that faded as the payments became expected. My sister continued to be the priority. My birthday dinner could be canceled without real consideration. I thought about what Dr. Cohen had said during our last session. Boundaries aren't about controlling others. They're about clarifying what you will and won't accept in your life. What was I willing to accept? The question rattled around in my mind as I clicked through my bank statements, looking at all the ways I'd financially supported my family while receiving little emotional support in return. Around midnight, I called Marco. "I think I'm going to stop paying their mortgage," I said when he answered. Silence on the other end then. "That's a big move, Edison. Are you sure?" "No," I admitted. "But I keep thinking about today, about all the birthdays and special moments that were pushed aside for Sophia, about how they take it for granted that I'll keep paying their mortgage while they cancel on me to attend her date. I can't do it anymore." "What are you afraid will happen if you stop?" Marco asked, his voice gentle. "That they'll be angry, that they'll lose the house, that they'll cut me off emotionally. Are they really providing you with emotional support now?" The question hit me hard. Were they? The occasional phone call, the family dinners where Sophia was the focus, the birthdays that could be rescheduled or forgotten. Was that emotional support? "I'm afraid they'll confirm what I've always suspected," I said finally. "That I only matter to them because of what I provide, not who I am. And if that's true, wouldn't you rather know?" Would I? The question kept me awake most of the night. By morning, exhaustion had cleared away the last of my hesitation. I knew what I needed to do. I sat at my desk and pulled up my banking app. The recurring payment was there, scheduled for 5 days from now. My finger hovered over the cancel recurring payment button. Was I really going to do this? Cut off the financial support that had been a constant for 3 years, the support that in my mind had been my way of proving my worth to my family. I thought of my mother's voice on the phone. "You can celebrate your birthday any time." The casual dismissal of something important to me. The assumption that I would understand, accommodate, step aside for Sophia. Always for Sophia. Before I could second-guess myself, I pressed the button. A confirmation dialogue appeared. "Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring payment?" I clicked yes. Just like that, it was done. The lifeline I had been providing to my parents was severed. The mortgage payment would not go through next week. A wave of anxiety washed over me immediately. What had I done? Should I reverse it? Set up the payment again? I took a deep breath and closed the laptop. This was necessary. This was a boundary I needed to set. For once, I needed to prioritize my own emotional well-being over my family's financial comfort. I spent the rest of the day in a state of nervous anticipation. Part of me expected an immediate call from my parents, as if they would somehow sense what I had done, but no call came. They didn't even text to wish me a happy birthday. By evening, my anxiety had begun to transform into something else: resolve. I hadn't just canceled a payment. I had taken the first step toward changing a deeply ingrained family dynamic. I texted Marco I did it. Canceled the mortgage payment. His reply came quickly. "Proud of you, E. It won't be easy, but it's the right move. I'm here whatever happens." That night I slept better than I had in months, perhaps years. The weight of expectation of always being the responsible one, the provider, had lifted slightly. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had taken control of my own story. The bank would notify my parents about the failed payment. There would be consequences, conversations, probably conflict. But for now, I had done something for myself. I had said in the only language my family seemed to understand that I mattered too. 5 days passed with no contact from my family. No belated birthday wishes, no mention of how the dinner with the Hamptons went. Just silence, as if I had ceased to exist once I wasn't needed for anything. On the 6th day, my phone exploded with notifications. 3 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Dad, and a text from Sophia. What the hell, Edison? Call Mom and Dad now. I knew what had happened. The mortgage payment had failed to process. The bank had notified them. The moment of reckoning had arrived. I waited an hour before calling back, using the time to center myself. When I finally dialed, Mom answered on the first ring. "Edison, thank goodness. There's been some mistake with the mortgage payment. The bank says it didn't go through. Can you fix it right away? They're charging a late fee." Her voice was high with panic, but there was also an unmistakable tone of expectation. Of course I would fix it. Of course I would make everything right again. "It's not a mistake, Mom," I said calmly. "I canceled the automatic payment." Silence on the other end. Then you. "What? Why would you do that?" Because I've decided I'm not paying your mortgage anymore. Edison, this isn't funny. We rely on that money. You know we can't make the payment on our own right now. I know, I said. That's been the arrangement for 3 years. I pay your mortgage, and in return I'm treated as an afterthought in the family. What are you talking about? Is this about your birthday dinner? We explained why we had to reschedule. Sophia had that important date. It's not just about the dinner, Mom. It's about years of being pushed aside for Sophia. It's about my birthday being canceled without a second thought, while you all went to La Maison with the Hamptons. So this island. What revenge? You're punishing us because you're jealous of your sister. Her response stung, but I held firm. This isn't revenge or jealousy. This is me setting a boundary. I'm not going to keep financially supporting a family that doesn't emotionally support me. I can't believe what I'm hearing. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Mom? In the last 3 years, what support have you given me that compares to the $86,400 I've paid toward your mortgage? We're your parents. We raised you. How dare you put a price tag on family? I'm not the one who put a price tag on family. You did when you made it clear that Sophia's date was worth more than my birthday celebration. I heard muffled voices, then Dad came on the line. Edison, what's going on? Your mother is upset. I've canceled the mortgage payment, Dad. I won't be making any more. A long pause. Son, if you're upset about your birthday, we can talk about that. But this mortgage situation is serious. We could lose the house. I understand that. I've understood it for 3 years, which is why I've been paying it. But I can't do it anymore. Not when it's so clear where I stand in this family. What does that mean, where you stand? You're our son. We love you. Do you, Dad? Because from where I sit, it seems like I'm valued for what I provide, not who I am. Another voice in the background. Sophia, let me talk to him, she was saying. Then Sophia was on the phone, her voice sharp. Edison, what is wrong with you? Mom and Dad are freaking out about the mortgage. You need to fix this. Hello to you too, Sophia. How was your date with Trevor Hampton? That's what this is about. You're having a tantrum because we missed your birthday dinner. Grow up, Edison. It was just a dinner. Her dismissive tone was the final confirmation I needed. It wasn't just a dinner to me, Sophia. It was important. But nothing about me is ever important enough in this family, is it? Oh my God, the drama. Look, nobody cares that you're having a midlife crisis or whatever this island. Just set up the payment again before Mom and Dad lose their house. Number. What do you mean no? I mean no, Sophia. I'm not setting up the payment again. I'm not bailing everyone out anymore. For once, my needs matter too. She scoffed. What needs? You have everything. The fancy job, the nice apartment, the money. What more could you possibly need? Respect, I said simply. Recognition. The basic courtesy of not having my birthday canceled for your date. Unbelievable. You're actually going to let Mom and Dad lose their house because your feelings are hurt. Who does that? Someone who's finally standing up for himself. I heard shuffling then. Mom was back on the phone, her voice tearful. Edison, please. We can't lose this house. All our memories are here. Your childhood. Sophia's childhood. Please don't do this. The guilt trip. The emotional manipulation. It was all so familiar, and for the first time I could see it clearly for what it was. I'm sorry, Mom. I've made my decision. You'll need to find another way to pay the mortgage. We don't have another way. You know that. Then perhaps it's time to sell the house and find something more affordable. How can you be so cruel, she sobbed. After everything we've done for you. There it was again. The vague everything they claimed to have done for me with no specifics. Because there were none, not in recent years anyway. I need to go, Mom. I have a meeting. Edison, don't you dare hang up this phone. We need to fix this now. There's nothing to fix, I said. My decision is final. I suggest you call the bank and see what options you have. I ended the call and turned my phone off. My hands were shaking, but there was also a strange sense of calm washing over me. I had done it. I had stood my ground. The next day I turned my phone back on to find more missed calls, angry texts, and even an email from Dad with the subject line, "Urgent Family Meeting." The email was brief. "Edison, we need to talk about this mortgage situation as a family. Your mother and I are hosting dinner tomorrow at 6. Be there." It wasn't a request, it was a command. The old Edison would have complied immediately, eager to smooth things over, to be the responsible son they expected. But I wasn't that Edison anymore. I replied, "I'll be there at 6. But I want to be clear, my decision about the mortgage is final. I'm coming to talk, not to be guilted into changing my mind." The next evening I arrived at my parents' house exactly at 6, the house that I had been paying for, the house that held memories of always being second best. Mom opened the door, her expression a mixture of anger and anxiety. "Come in," she said stiffly. "We're in the dining room." Dad and Sophia were already seated at the table. No food had been prepared. This wasn't really a dinner. It was an intervention. I took the empty chair across from Sophia, feeling 3 pairs of eyes fixed on me. "Edison," Dad began, his voice somber, "we need to understand what's going on. This behavior isn't like you." "What behavior would that be, Dad? Setting boundaries, prioritizing my own needs for once." "Refusing to help your family," Sophia interjected. "Threatening Mom and Dad's home because you're having some kind of breakdown." "I'm not having a breakdown, Sophia. I'm simply no longer willing to be this family's ATM while being treated as an afterthought." Mom gasped. "An ATM? Is that how you see us? As using you for money? Aren't you? In the past 3 years, I've paid your mortgage, co-signed Dad's truck loan, funded your garden business startup, fixed the roof, and loaned Sophia money at least 6 times. Money that was never repaid, by the way. We've been going through a rough patch," Dad defended. "You know my business has struggled." "I do know that. I also know that last week, when I was excited about my birthday dinner, that I spent months planning, you all canceled on me without a second thought, because Sophia had a date." "That was different," Mom insisted. "That was an important opportunity for Sophia. And my birthday wasn't important. The restaurant I reserved months in advance. The jazz trio I hired because Dad loves jazz. The custom cake that recreated my childhood favorite. None of that mattered enough to keep our plans." A flicker of something crossed Dad's face. Surprise, perhaps, or the first hint of realization. "You hired a jazz trio?" he asked quietly. "Yes, Dad. And I got you vintage records as a gift. They're still sitting in my apartment." "We didn't realize," Mom began. "Exactly. You didn't realize because you didn't ask. You didn't care enough to consider what the dinner meant to me. You just assumed I would understand, that I would step aside for Sophia like I always do. So this is punishing us because we missed your birthday," Sophia said, rolling her eyes. Real mature Edison. "This isn't punishment, Sophia. This is consequence. For years I've given, and given to this family financially and emotionally. I've stepped aside, rescheduled, understood, accommodated, and in return I've been taken for granted, overlooked, dismissed." "That's not true," Mom protested. "We appreciate everything you do." "Do you?" "Because from where I sit, it seems like my only value to this family is financial. As long as the mortgage gets paid and Sophia gets her loans, everyone's happy. But when I want something emotional, like having my family attend my birthday dinner, suddenly, that's negotiable." Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Son, we love you. Not because of what you provide, but because you're our son." "Then why don't you show it, Dad? Why is Sophia's date more important than my birthday? Why is her career confusion more worthy of support than my successes? Why are her needs always prioritized over mine?" The room fell silent. For perhaps the first time, my words seemed to be landing. "We never meant to make you feel less important," Mom said, finally, her voice smaller. "Intention doesn't matter, Mom. Impact does. And the impact has been clear in this family. I come second. Always." Sophia stood up suddenly. "This is ridiculous. So we missed your birthday dinner. It happens. That doesn't justify threatening Mom and Dad's home." "Sit down, Sophia," Dad said, his tone surprisingly firm. "Let's hear Edison out." Sophia looked shocked, but complied, crossing her arms defensively. "I'm not threatening anything," I continued. I'm simply no longer willing to be financially responsible for this family while being emotionally neglected. I've spent 3 years and over $86,000 supporting you all. In return, I've watched Sophia get bailed out repeatedly, had my achievements minimized, and had my birthday canceled for a date that might not even lead anywhere. Trevor hasn't called me back, if you must know, Sophia muttered. I'm sorry to hear that I said, and I meant it. But that doesn't change the fact that all of you prioritized the possibility of his interest over the certainty of my celebration. What do you want from us? Edison Dad asked. What would make this right? It was the first genuine question anyone had asked me. I want to be valued in this family for who I am, not what I provide. I want my time, my feelings, my celebrations to matter as much as Sophia's. I want reciprocity and respect. And the mortgage, Mom asked anxiously. I won't be paying it anymore. That's non-negotiable. You'll need to figure out another solution. We can't afford it on our own, Dad admitted. We might have to sell. Then sell, I said, surprised by my own calmness. Downsize to something you can afford. It's what any financially responsible adult would do. Just like that, Mom's voice trembled. 30 years in this house, and you want us to just leave it behind. I don't want you to leave it behind, Mom, but I'm no longer willing to sacrifice my financial future to maintain your past. 3 years was generous. It's time for a change. The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of truth finally spoken aloud. The week after our confrontation was tense. My parents called the bank to explain the situation and request options. As I expected, the bank was unsympathetic. 3 missed payments would trigger foreclosure proceedings. They needed to either make the payment or make arrangements immediately. Dad called me, his voice strained but less accusatory than before. The bank won't budge, Edison. We either pay or we lose the house. I understand, Dad. What are you going to do? A heavy sigh. We're meeting with a realtor tomorrow. If we sell now, we can pay off the mortgage and maybe have enough for a down payment on a smaller place. The news should have made me feel victorious, but instead I felt a complex mixture of sadness and relief. Sad that it had come to this, but relieved that they were finally facing financial reality. I think that's a wise decision, Dad. Your mother is taking it hard. This house, it's been our whole adult life. I know. I'm sorry it's difficult. But I think in the long run, living within your means will bring more peace than struggling to maintain something you can't afford. A pause then. When did you get so wise? I've had a lot of time to think about these things, Dad. About what's sustainable and what's not. Not just financially, but emotionally too. Another pause. I've been thinking about what you said. About always putting Sophia first. I never saw it that way, but looking back, maybe there's some truth to it. It was the closest thing to an acknowledgement I'd ever received from him. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot to hear. The conversation ended amicably, a small step toward healing. Sophia was less accepting of the new reality. She texted me a few days later. Happy now, Mom's been crying for days about losing the house. I replied, I'm not happy about anyone's pain, but I do think this change is necessary for everyone. Easy for you to say from your fancy apartment that WE helped you get. This was news to me. What do you mean you helped me get my apartment? Mom and Dad co-signed your first lease. Remember, when you were just starting out? She was referring to a 6-month lease on a studio apartment 7 years ago when I had just graduated college. They had co-signed because I didn't have established credit yet despite having the income to cover rent. That was 7 years ago, Sophia. And they didn't pay anything. They just co-signed. I've been financially independent since I was 18. Whatever. The point is, family is supposed to help each other. You're being selfish. I've helped for 3 years, Sophia. $86,400 in mortgage payments alone, not counting all the other financial support. What have you contributed? She didn't respond for hours. When she finally did, her tone had shifted. I didn't realize it was that much money. Most people don't spend that much on their family. I did it because I care. But caring has to go both ways. Another long pause before her reply. I'm sorry about your birthday. I didn't know you had hired a jazz trio and stuff. It wasn't a full acknowledgement of the pattern, but it was something. Thank you for saying that. Are Mom and Dad really going to have to sell the house? Yes, unless they can find another way to afford the mortgage. Dad's business isn't bringing in enough, and Mom's garden venture is still new. What if? What if I helped, I could move back and pay rent? The suggestion surprised me. Sophia had been adamant about her independence, about having her own space. That's between you and them, Sophia. But it would probably help. A week later, Mom called with news. We found a townhouse about 20 minutes from here. It's smaller, but it's nice. And with the equity from this house, we can buy it outright. No mortgage. That sounds perfect, Mom. Financial freedom will be a good change. Sophia's moving in with us temporarily, too. She's going to pay rent to help with utilities and property taxes. I think that's great. Really. A hesitation, then. We'd like you to come see the new place with us before we make an offer. Your opinion matters to us, Edison. Those words, your opinion matters, landed deeply. I'd be happy to, Mom. The townhouse was indeed smaller than their current home, but it was well maintained and in a pleasant community. 2 bedrooms instead of 4, a modest yard instead of their current half-acre. But it was within their means, something they could afford without struggle. As we toured the space, Mom linked her arm through mine, something she hadn't done in years. What do you think, Edison? Could you see us here? I think it's perfect for your next chapter, Mom. It's cozy, but not cramped, manageable, but still comfortable. Dad nodded in agreement. No more mortgage. No more stress every month about making payments. There's something appealing about that simplicity. They made an offer that day, which was accepted. The timeline was quick: 30 days to close on both properties. A whirlwind of packing, sorting, downsizing. I offered to help with the move, and to my surprise, they accepted gratefully rather than expectantly. The dynamic was shifting subtly but noticeably. During the moving process, Dad and I had a moment alone while carrying boxes to the truck. Edison, he said, setting down a heavy box and wiping his brow, I want you to know something. I'm proud of you. Not just for your success, but for standing up for yourself. It couldn't have been easy to confront us like that. It wasn't, I admitted. I was terrified. You forced us to face some hard truths. About our finances, yes, but also about how we've treated you compared to Sophia. I'm not saying we got everything wrong, but we could have done better by you. His words were a balm to years of hurt. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. Your mother and I have been talking. We want to do better. Be more aware of the balance between you and your sister. It might take time for old habits to change, but we're trying. I nodded, feeling a cautious optimism. That's all I can ask for. The day they moved into the townhouse, I brought a housewarming gift, a small jazz record player for the living room, along with the vintage records I had originally bought for Dad's birthday gift. Mom cried when she opened it. Oh, Edison, it's perfect. As Dad set up the record player, Sophia approached me awkwardly. I got you something too, she said, handing me a small wrapped package. Inside was a belated birthday card and a gift certificate to Riverside, the restaurant where my canceled dinner was supposed to be held. I thought maybe we could go sometime, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Just us, to talk and stuff. It was a small gesture, but a meaningful one. I'd like that, Sophia. Thank you. That evening, as we sat in their new living room, smaller but somehow warmer than the old house had been, Dad put on one of the jazz records. The familiar notes filled the space, creating a moment of peace after weeks of tension. A toast, Dad said, raising his glass. To new beginnings, to honesty, even when it's difficult, and to family, which is about more than just a house or money. It's about seeing each other, truly seeing each other. We clinked glasses, the sound bright and hopeful in the new space. 2 months passed quickly. Spring turned to early summer, bringing with it a sense of renewal that seemed fitting for our family's evolution. My parents had settled into their townhouse with surprising ease. Without the burden of the mortgage, they seemed lighter, more present. Dad's business had picked up slightly, and Mom's garden venture was gaining local clients. They weren't wealthy, but they were managing on their own, which seemed to give them a newfound pride. Sophia had indeed moved in with them, temporarily paying rent as promised. The arrangement had created an unexpected maturity in her. She had found a job at a marketing firm and was sticking with it, coming home with stories about projects and colleagues rather than complaints about being unappreciated. As for me, I had continued my therapy sessions with Dr. Cohen, working through the complex emotions that had surfaced during the confrontation and its aftermath. Guilt still crept in occasionally, but it was less overwhelming now, balanced by a growing sense of self-worth. The most significant change came 6 weeks after the move. My parents called and invited me to dinner at their townhouse. "We want to celebrate your birthday properly," Mom said. "We know it's late, but it's important to us." When I arrived, I was surprised to find their small dining room decorated with tasteful birthday banners. A chocolate cake with raspberry filling and buttercream frosting sat on the counter, almost identical to the one I had ordered for my canceled celebration. "We asked the bakery to recreate it," Dad explained, seeing my surprise. "From your description." Dinner was simple but thoughtful. All my favorite foods prepared with care. No jazz trio, but Dad had created a playlist of jazz standards that played softly in the background. After dinner, Mom brought out a small wrapped box. "This isn't much, but we wanted you to have something meaningful." Inside was a vintage watch that had belonged to my grandfather. "Dad always said this would be yours someday," Mom explained. We thought, "Why wait? You should have it now." The watch was beautiful, a classic timepiece with sentimental value that far outweighed any monetary worth. I don't know what to say. I managed, genuinely moved. "You don't need to say anything," Dad replied. "Just know that we're sorry, Edison. Sorry for the times we've made you feel less important, less valued. You deserve better from us." "We can't change the past," Mom added, "but we can work on the future, being more mindful, more equal in how we treat you and Sophia." Speaking of Sophia, she had been unusually quiet during dinner. Now she pushed a card across the table to me. "I got you something too." Inside the card was a handwritten note. "Edison, I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about how I've been the favorite all these years. I never saw it that way before, but looking back, I can see you were right. I'm sorry for taking you for granted and for not appreciating all you've done. I'm working on being more self-sufficient and less selfish. Thank you for the wake-up call, even though it was hard to hear. Love, Sophia." Attached to the card was a check for $1,000. "It's not much compared to what you've given me," she said, "but it's a start. I'm going to pay back all those loans eventually." The gesture, more than the money itself, represented a significant shift in our relationship. "Thank you," I said, looking at each of them in turn. "This means more than you know." As we ate cake and talked, I realized something had fundamentally changed in our family dynamic. There was more listening, more awareness of each person's contributions and needs, more balance. The changes weren't perfect or complete. Old patterns occasionally resurfaced. Mom still sometimes focused more attention on Sophia's stories. Dad still occasionally made assumptions about my willingness to help with technical issues without asking first. But now, when these things happened, I felt comfortable speaking up. "Mom, I was sharing something about my work before Sophia started talking." Or, "Dad, please ask if I have time to help," rather than assuming. And remarkably, they listened. They adjusted. They respected the boundaries I was setting. Our relationship was evolving into something healthier, something more reciprocal. I was no longer the family ATM or the perpetual afterthought. I was Edison's son and brother, a full and equal member of the family. The healing process wasn't linear. There were awkward moments, old hurts that resurfaced, misunderstandings that needed clearing up. But with each honest conversation, each acknowledgement of past imbalances, we moved forward. I continued to help my family when I could, but now it was from a place of choice rather than obligation or search for validation. I helped Dad create a website for his construction business. I advised Mom on scaling her garden venture. I reviewed Sophia's resume when she decided to apply for a promotion. But I also maintained my boundaries. When they invited me to a family event that conflicted with plans I had already made with friends, I declined politely but firmly. "I've already committed to something else that day. Maybe we can reschedule for the following weekend." And they did, without guilt trips or manipulation. Just simple acceptance that my time and commitments mattered too. The most profound change, though, was within me. The weight of resentment I had carried for years had lightened. I no longer felt the need to prove my worth through financial support or constant accommodation. I had found my voice and in doing so had discovered a new sense of peace. Dr. Cohen called it reclaiming my personal power, and that felt right. I had taken control of my place in the family narrative, refusing to accept the role of perpetual supporter without reciprocal support. The journey wasn't about revenge or punishment as my family had initially feared. It was about establishing balance, about creating healthier patterns that allowed all of us to be seen and valued for who we were, not just what we could provide. In the end, canceling that mortgage payment was about much more than money. It was about sending a message that I mattered too, that my birthday deserved celebration, that my feelings deserved consideration, that I was not just a resource to be tapped when needed and ignored when inconvenient. And somehow, through the pain and confrontation, that message had finally been heard. As summer bloomed fully, I found myself looking forward to family gatherings rather than dreading them. I found joy in our interactions rather than suppressed hurt. I found authentic connection rather than transactional exchanges. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, real, meaningful progress. And that was worth more than any mortgage payment could ever be. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with family members who took you for granted? What was the hardest part about standing up for yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength and self-worth in challenging relationships. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others and yourself is to establish healthy boundaries.